Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. On a chilly autumn evening in the small town of Maplewood, nestled deep in the heart of rural America, darkness crept in just before 6 o'clock. The last traces of daylight faded behind the scenic cover of amber and crimson leaves, leaving only the soft glow of porch lights. There was a sense of sameness to the town children playing on the playground, dogs being walked down the quiet streets, and the faint sound of laughter wafting through the air from homes settling in for the night. Yet, unbeknownst to the residents, a storm was brewing just beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic community. Samantha Turner, a longtime local reporter for the Maplewood Gazette, was preparing to cover the annual Harvest Festival, which had just begun to draw patrons to the town square. As she made her way to the venue, Samantha felt a gnawing anxiety, an inexplicable premonition. Her instincts were finely honed from years of digging into the stories of Maplewood, an investigative skill molded by a string of past controversies that had rocked the seemingly tranquil community. But that evening, it would not be a celebration she would uncover. As she arrived, she overheard whispers among the townsfolk. Distressed conversations echoed in a gathering crowd, their faces etched with concern. A local teenager, Jamie Foster, had been reported missing, last seen hours ago, wandering down towards the old Maplewood Park, an area rumored to be haunted by legends of its own. The autumn chill grew colder, and with it, a growing dread settled into the town, as residents feared that the very heart of their community might harbor something sinister. Samantha, driven by her journalist's curiosity and deep-rooted sense of duty, felt a spark ignite within her. This was a story waiting to unfold. The people of Maplewood, their secrets stirring, were about to be thrust into the darkest chapter of their lives. The victim. Jamie Foster was a name etched into the fabric of Maplewood. At 17, she was a vibrant tapestry of youthful ambition and honor student, a talented musician, and a beloved friend. The news of her sudden disappearance rippled through the town like a shockwave, troubling the gentle rhythm of everyday life. Friends had gathered in a tight circle, their expressions a blend of fear and disbelief. Jamie had always been the one to take the lead, organizing study sessions and encouraging others to reach for their dreams. Her presence was magnetic, a source of light that drew everyone close. They spoke of last weekend's bonfire, where her laughter danced with the flames, and how she had promised to help with the Harvest Festival decorations. Now, though, an empty space lingered where her infectious energy used to reside. Witnesses recounted the last known sighting of Jamie. She had been seen leaving her house late in the afternoon, earbuds in, as she walked toward Maplewood Park, her usual retreat. For Jamie, the park was more than just a stretch of land. It was a sanctuary. It represented the adventures she craved, a realm of solace adorned with swinging branches, whispering tales of the past. As her friends made anxious calls, they recounted the peculiarities of the site, a wooded area, occasionally shunned by locals due to eerie stories of lost wanderers. They didn't want to believe Jamie would venture near the ancient trees. Such tales felt far too ominous for anyone to take seriously. Hours turned to an uneasy night, and the search parties began to form. Shadows of uncertainty danced in the corners of the torches that flickered by the park's perimeter. Even the fading sound of cicadas felt somehow muted, as though nature paused to mourn her absence. Jamie's friends could hardly fathom what was to come, how their lives would be irrevocably altered by a fateful twist of fate. Little did they know that the peaceful tapestry of Maplewood would soon unravel, revealing dark threads that had been hidden for far too long. The crime scene. The night deepened, casting a shroud of uncertainty over Maplewood Park. Flickering flashlights pierced the darkness as volunteers, the police, and concerned friends found calling Jamie's name, their voices merging into a chorus of desperation. The air was thick with a blend of anxiety and fear as they combed through the dense underbrush, hearts pounding with each rustle of leaves. It was just past midnight when the chilling sound of a barked command broke through the gloom. Officer Daniel Reed, a seasoned lawman with a reputation for thoroughness, had unearthed something among the thick foliage at the park's outskirts, a canvas sneaker, scuffed and mud-caked. He bent down, his heartbeat echoing in his ears as he carefully picked it up, eyes scanning the immediate area. It felt like a jarring puzzle piece fitting into a grim picture. The first tangible clue that something had gone tragically wrong. As more officers gathered, a cold hand of dread clenched around their collective throats. They continued searching, unwelcome emotions weaving through them. The initial determination to find Jamie had morphed into an apprehension that felt all-consuming. The moon hung low, its ethereal light casting pale shadows that seemed to dance around the trunks of ancient trees. Minutes turned to hours as the dim glow of lights revealed what lay beneath the surface-broken branches. Disturbed earth, and the unmistakable blend of fear and sorrow among the searching party. Detective Clara Hargrove, recently assigned to the case, arrived at the scene, her sharp instincts guiding her as she assessed the unfolding chaos. Years of experience told her that this was no random disappearance. The unease that enveloped the air hinted at something darker. "Form a perimeter," she commanded, her voice steady and authoritative, demanding order amidst the chaos. As officers staked out their positions, her gaze lingered on the sneaker. It belonged to Jamie, without a doubt. She could see the distinct fabric pattern that resonated from the photographs on social media. The hope that they might find her safe and sound began to slowly fade, swallowed by an increasing certainty that the town had become a witness to something far more sinister. With each passing moment, the weight of dread grew heavier, sinking into the hearts of everyone present. They were not simply searching for Jamie Foster anymore. They were grappling with the unsettling reality that a crime had taken root in their beloved Maplewood, and they were all unwitting players in its unfolding narrative. The early investigation. As dawn broke over Maplewood, rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, illuminating the remnants of a night steeped in unease. The search for Jamie Foster was now officially a police investigation, and with it came the harrowing responsibility of untangling the threads of her disappearance. Detective Clara Hargrove, whose resolve solidified alongside her experience, gathered her team around the worn wooden picnic table at the park's entrance. "We need to make sense of what happened last night," she said, her voice steady but firm. Clara had learned long ago that empathy was paramount in heinous cases, especially when emotions ran high. But she also recognized the necessity of methodical logic amidst the chaos. They meticulously dissected the timeline of events leading up to Jamie's disappearance. Clara set her sights on interviewing Jamie's friends first. Each of them appeared exhausted but resolute, their sorrow emerging through puffy eyes and raw voice. They recounted the bonfire, the laughter, and the casual mention of Jamie heading to the park, a place they described in nostalgic tones, oblivious to the darker undertones that soon surfaced. One friend spoke haltingly of a rumor circulating about a figure seen lurking near the park during the late hours, but the mention caught Clara's attention like a spark igniting dry kindling. Flipping through their notes, Clara noted the names of everyone Jamie had communicated with most recently, determined to catch the threads leading to potential witnesses. Phone records were summoned, and among them emerged an incendiary lead, A text message sent just moments before Jamie left her home, filled with a sense of urgency. Meanwhile, forensic teams combed the area near the park for any trace of Jamie, collecting soil samples and combing foliage for potential evidence. They searched for footprints, but found only an overwhelming number of trails made by those seeking peace and recreation before Jamie had vanished into thin air. As the day traversed into evening, sadness melded with a burgeoning dread within the town itself. Clara sensed a shift. The once serene community was now plagued by whispers, fear stifling the air as rumors ballooned. Innocent gatherings began to feel uncomfortable, the laughter laced with anxiety as parents kept their children close. And through it all, the cryptic notion of an unseen danger loomed large, a threat lurking within the shadows of a place once cherished. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out in desperation. Clara understood they had only scratched the surface of a complex web. And as she pieced together fragments of Jamie's life intertwined with the fabric of Maplewood, she braced herself for what they might uncover. The early investigation had only just begun, but the darkness already whispered secrets of its own. The dead ends. With each passing day, the fervor of the investigation began to dissipate, replaced by a looming sense of dread that grasped Maplewood firmly in its grip. While Detective Clara Hargrove tirelessly pursued every lead, each new turn seemed to yield only frustration and uncertainty. The searching eyes of the town's residents, once filled with hope, morphed into expressions of despair as days turned into weeks without any sign of Jamie. In the investigation room at the local police station, Clara worked fervently with her team, sorting through piles of evidence that seemed to lead nowhere. The text message from Jamia's simple plea to meet me by the swings was interpreted in dozens of ways, yet it offered no solid clues. They reached out to every friend, classmate, and teacher, but their testimonies revealed nothing that tangibly pointed toward a suspect or motive. Clara felt the weight of every dead end bearing down on her. As the sunlight began to fade each evening, so did the community's sense of peace. Town meetings, initially filled with concern and determination, evolved into whispers of blame and suspicion as fingers began to point in various directions, mostly toward the strange man seen loitering near the park. He became a target of speculation, despite the lack of any concrete evidence tying him to Jamie's disappearance. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Clara and her team organized a meeting with community members to address their growing worries. As she looked at the sea of anxious faces, she felt the collective panic wash over her. She needed to assure them that the investigation was ongoing, that police were steadfast in their pursuit of the truth. "The investigation hasn't stalled," she said, trying to transcend the silence that veiled the room. "We are still following leads. There's just a lot we need to process." However, her own growing doubt seeped into her voice. Each face in front of her held the hope of closure, yet she felt the haunting gravity of uncertainty strangling her resolve. As they departed from the meeting, an elderly woman whispered a warning to her younger neighbor about the dangers of trusting outsiders, her words tangled with agony. The town's pulse quickened as the rumor mill churned now. It was not only Jamie who lingered in darkness, but all of Maplewood. Trust frayed like a worn thread, leaving behind a tapestry splattered with suspicion and fear that darkened their once bright lives. Days bled into nights, and comfortable normalcy faded into an uncertain haze. Clara knew that they needed to pivot. Searching through the ghosts of past rumors and whisperings had yielded little, only certainty that emerged was that time was slipping away. She felt their desperation bore down upon her, like the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions, each one a stark reminder of Jamie's absence. But just as shadows threatened to eclipse her resolve, Clara vowed to ignite her pursuit once more, clinging to the hope that beneath the layers of misdirection, a breakthrough awaited. A break in the case. Just when the unyielding weight of despair began to settle into Clara's bones, a seemingly innocuous piece of evidence fell into her lap. One of the forensic technicians, a young man named Tom with a keen eye for detail, discovered something during a routine analysis of surveillance footage from a nearby gas station. It wasn't Jamie, but rather a figure of interest, captured by an old security camera in the moments following her disappearance. Clara corrected her tired posture as she leaned closer to the screen, squinting at the grainy, low-light footage. A man wearing a dark hoodie had paused just outside the frame of the gas station. Curiously, he glanced over his shoulder multiple times before disappearing down a side street, just a few blocks from the park. The timestamp aligned almost perfectly with the time Jamie was last seen. "Can we enhance that?" Clara asked, her heart racing with renewed adrenaline. Tom nodded and began the process, manipulating the footage to reveal distinct details. As the image sharpened, they caught glimpses of a recognizable fascia, local resident, someone who had frequented Maplewood Park, but had become socially reclusive over the years. Clara's gut churned. This was the kind of breakthrough that could change everything. Within hours, she and her team rushed to interview acquaintances of the man, hoping to unearth anything that might shed light on his potential involvement. The texture of the fabric of the investigation began to shift ever so slightly. One friend recounted an encounter weeks prior. The man had been agitated, mumbling disjointed phrases about feeling overlooked and unappreciated. As Clara listened, each word painted a clearer picture of someone grappling with deep-seated frustrations, a portrait of someone who could spiral toward violence when pushed. With the background check complete, they learned the man had a minor criminal history, with offenses that hinted at violent outbursts in the past. He had recently lost his job and had been living in increasingly isolated circumstance. The dots began to connect, and Clara felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. Armed with this new information, the team planned surveillance on the man in question, monitoring his movements over the following days. But beyond the magnitude of the revelation lay another unsettling reality had yet to find Jamie. And time continued to slip away from them. As Clara prepared for the impending confrontation, she steeled herself, aware that the shadow of danger loomed over not only the investigation, but also the community she had sworn to protect. They were close to uncovering a truth that had long eluded them, but the path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty. The breakthrough felt like a double-edged sword, hope mingling painfully with fear as they edged closer to a confrontation that could either lead to justice or intensify the heartbreak already gripping Maplewood. The suspect. The air was thick with anticipation as Detective Clara Hargrove and her team convened in the nondescript police cruiser, parked a few blocks from the home of the primary suspect, a man named Michael Quinn. The neighborhood remained tranquil, oblivious to the tension brewing in its midst. Clara peered out the window, studying the modest single-story house, its faded paint whispering tales of years gone by. It was a home that, to the average observer, seemed unremarkable, much like its inhabitant, a man who had once been an ordinary part of the town's fabric, but now stood as the potential linchpin in the investigation into Jamie Foster's disappearance. They had been watching Michael for days, tracking his movements and conversations, and now knew his routine like a well-rehearsed script. Clara's stomach churned with a mix of unease and determination as they approached the moment that could alter everything. "Let's move," she instructed her team, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. As they approached the front door, Clara's heart raced, a pulsing reminder of the stakes. The sound of her knuckles rattling against the wood echoed in her ears as the creaking door opened, revealing Michael Quinn. His eyes darted between them, a moment of confusion quickly shifting to apprehension. "Can we come in?" Clara asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil roiling beneath the surface. Michael hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his features. Yet he stepped aside, allowing them entry into the dimly lit living room, heavy with a scent of stale cigarettes and unwashed laundry. They settled into the worn-out chairs, the air thick with unspoken tension. Clara initiated the discussion casually, probing into Michael's day-to-day life, gradually steering the conversation toward the events of the last few weeks. He fidgeted, the cracks in his facade revealing themselves as he spoke. The disquiet in his eyes tightened in uneasiness that Clara recognized all too well. When she finally turned the conversation to Jamie, a marked change came over. "Never seen her," he muttered defensively, yet his eyes betrayed him, flickering nervously to the floor. Clara's gut instinct screamed that his account couldn't be trusted, and the hairs on her neck raised. The instinct was that of a hunter cornering its prey. Questions about his alibi were met with vague responses and thinly veiled excuses. As tensions escalated, Clara pressed him about the surveillance footage, the grainy image of him lurking near the gas station, still fresh in her mind. "I was just passing through," he insisted, but then the tremor in his voice told another story. Fear was woven into his words, a sign that he knew more than he let on. Feeling a rush of adrenaline, Clara made the move that would bring the pressure to bear. "Michael, we have reason to believe you were near Maplewood Park the night Jamie disappeared. Can you explain your actions and your whereabouts in detail?" The room fell silent, the clock ticking as the weight of her inquiry sank in. Sweat began to bead on his forehead, and Clara observed the way his breath quickened. The unsettling truth loomed just beneath the surface, suffocating, and within that moment, everything shifted. She could sense the unraveling of his composed demeanor, as if the threads of a carefully constructed lie risked breaking apart completely. As Clara initiated further questioning, she felt a swell of determination rise within her. This was not just about Jamie anymore. It was about peeling away layers of secrecy that had remained hidden too long. The answer was almost tangible, and she could feel the case thickening with urgency. Whatever darkness resided within Michael Quinn was about to shine a light on the shadows that engulfed them all. The trial docked. The sun rose over Maplewood with an unsettling quietude, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps where reporters huddled in clusters, their cameras poised like sentinels, awaiting the arrival of the principal players in a drama that had gripped the small town for months. The trial of Michael Quinn was about to commence, a tension-laden affair that had drawn onlookers from far and wide. The air buzzed with anticipation, each tick of the clock echoing loudly, reminding those gathered of the heavy weight resting on an already fragile community. As Clara entered the courtroom, a palpable hush enveloped the room. The atmosphere was thick, the air still from the gravity of what had transpired in the prior months, the unanswered questions that had haunted the town, and the tragedy that unfolded in their midst. Clara took her seat alongside the prosecution team, her heart racing at the sheer enormity of the moment. All eyes turned to the defendant, who sat at the front in a tattered suit, attempting to appear composed, but betraying a flicker of fear behind his stoic facade. The proceedings commenced, and the prosecutor took the podium, delivering a compelling opening statement that laid bare the evidence amassed against Quinn. Clara leaned forward, heart pounding as the words unfurled each piece of mosaic reflecting the painful truth that had woven through Maplewood. A community gripped in collective fear. Witnesses were called forth, one by one, to recount their observations. Neighbors who had seen Michael near the park. Friends who spoke of his erratic behavior prior to Jamie's disappearance. And the forensic technician who presented the surveillance footage that ultimately implicated him in a harrowing embrace with fate. Clara's mind raced as she absorbed each testimony. She knew how important each detail was to ensure justice for Jamie. More than once, Clara caught glimpses of the victim's family, whose silent agony seeped into the room a weight that could not be ignored. Their grief was palpable. Their eyes mirrored the hope that justice would bring them closure. As each day of the trial unfolded, the emotional toll weighed heavily on everyone involved, an acknowledgement that lived within every heart that filled the court. On the third day, Clara took a deep breath, as it was finally her turn to testify. She shared the harrowing account of the investigation, the sleepless nights, piecing together Jamie's life, her meticulous search for answers, the relentless pursuit to bring closure to the town. As she recounted her interactions with Michael, she felt a mixture of anger and sadness, recalling those chilling moments that had left so many unanswered questions. Under cross-examination, the defense sought to undermine Clara's credibility, painting her as an overly eager detective seeking to villainize an innocent man. Clara held her ground, knowing the weight of truth rested on her shoulder. Despite the nerves that battled within her, her resolve shone through, and she remained undeterred in the pursuit of justice. As the trial continued, fragments of the past resurfaced, weaving together a narrative that the jury had to grapple with, a story of misplaced anger, of desperation, and of the tragic loss of a bright young life. The courtroom became a theater of raw emotion and stark realities, and as the closing arguments loomed near, Clara understood that this was not merely a conclusion, but a profound reckoning for a community still healing. In the final hours of deliberation, the air grew thick with silent prayers and anxious glances exchanged. When the jury returned with their verdict, Clara felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. As the foreperson stood to announce the decision, eyes locked onto Michael, time stretched painfully thin. Ultimately, the culmination of truth, grief, and hope merged in that moment, shaping the legacy of not only Jamie Foster, but the very spirit of Maplewood itself. They had walked this difficult road together, and as the verdict echoed in that silent courtroom, they held tightly to the promise of justice, a beacon of light piercing through the shadows. The aftermath. The echoes of the trial lingered long after the verdict was rendered. Maplewood was changed, reverberating with the sharp pangs of heartache, mingled with an insatiable longing for justice that had finally been served. While the jury found Michael Quinn guilty of kidnapping and manslaughter, the community was left with the unbearable reality that a beloved daughter, sister, and friend could never return. In the weeks that followed, Clara felt the weight of the case settle onto her shoulders as she resumed her routine, though nothing felt routine anymore. She often wandered through the familiar streets of Maplewood, each corner alive with memories of Jamie's laughter and carefree spirit. But now, laughter felt hollow, replaced by an undercurrent of grief that draped over the town like a heavy fog. The harvest festival, which had once held so much joy, turned bittersweet. Jamie's friends and family courageously volunteered to commemorate her memory, decorating the square with sunflowers and twinkling lights. Clara's heart swelled with pride as she watched the community rally together, sharing stories of Jamie, celebrating her life even as they grappled with the implications of her absence. Yet, beneath the surface, Clara could feel the struggle to heal. Residents whispered about their fears, casting wary glances toward one another, the shadows of doubt lingering in the corners of their minds. The stranger lurking near the park had become a symbolic representation of a threat as the community reassessed their sense of safety, examining the unseen dangers that could often hide in plain sight. As the seasons slipped from autumn to winter, Clara immersed herself in her work, seeking comfort in the familiar rhythm of routine. Yet she'd often find herself gazing out the window on particularly crisp days, consumed by the slow thaw of time, echoing the struggle for healing in Maplewood's heart. The tragedy had become a constant presence, a reminder of how fragile life was. Months passed, and Clara decided to host a town meeting, determined to facilitate a dialogue about the trauma that still lingered in the air. As she stood before the townsfolk, she felt the nervousness in her core. They were a community on the brink, searching for connections amidst grief. "We are not just defined by this tragedy," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion, "but by how we support one another in healing." Voices rose, sharing their fears and memories of Jamie, transforming the conversation into a cathartic exchange of shared burden. Tears were shed, laughter echoed through moments of vulnerability, and Clara felt the warmth of connection begin to weave through the room like a patchwork blanket slowly mending fractures. Even as the shadows continued to stretch and flicker, Clara realized that their collective strength could overcome the darkness. Together they found a fragile but vital resilience in rebuilding, one step at a time. They planted a garden in the town square in memory of Jamie, a vibrant symbol of new life, emerging from devastation, a testament to love and loss, growth and healing. As she helped water the new blooms that symbolized hope, Clara understood that this community would carry Jamie's spirit forward. Though they had been tested in unimaginable ways, the bond they forged amidst grief offered a beacon of hope. And as the seasons continued their cycle, promising the arrival of spring, the residents of Maplewood learned to navigate the aftermath together, forever changed yet still resilient, together emerging once more into the light. Reflection. As winter melted into spring, Clara stood at the edge of the garden in Maplewood Square, where the flowers planted in Jamie's memory began to bloom with vibrant colors. Each petal unfurled in defiance of the harsh winter that had held them captive, much like the resilience of the community striving to find hope amidst unimaginable loss. The sun cast a warm glow over the town, and Clara often found herself lost in thought, reflecting on the transformative journey that had unfolded since Jamie's disappearance. She recalled that first day in the park, the tension that hung heavy in the air, as though the world held its breath, waiting for answers. Each subsequent challenge had brought the community closer. She had witnessed firsthand the way pain could bridge divide, compelling strangers to bond over shared heartbreak, while weaving together the fabric of a nurturing cult. The sorrow they experienced had given birth to an enduring strength, a lifeline that blossomed in the face of darkness. Clara sat on the bench in the park where Jamie used to hang out, feeling the gentle breeze against her skin. The rustling leaves echoed softly in her ear, perhaps whispering truths that transcended words. With each day that passed, the memories of Jamie danced vividly in her mind, her laughter, her kindness, her aspirations for the future. Clara realized that while the events had left deep scars, the weight of grief was counterbalanced by the warmth of unity and love. Despite the tragedy, Clara's commitment to protecting Maplewood remained unwavering. She felt determined to advocate for missing persons in her role as a detective, aiming to prevent future families from enduring the torment that Jamie's loved ones had faced. The fight was far from over. Every day she would search for ways to honor Jamie's legacy, amplifying the importance of awareness and communication in a world where too many voices went unheard. In the end, reflection revealed a bittersweet truth. Healing was never linear. As the garden flourished, so too would Maplewood. Clara embraced the uncertainty of the future, knowing that each new day represented an opportunity to forge strength from suffering, lasting connections from heartache, and to inspire love and compassion in the face of life's most unbearable moments.